Have you ever wanted to know how to make consistent contact time and time again? So you're not fatting it, you're not thinning it. In fact, what you're doing, you're actually creating shots that actually get a lot of backspin and check when they land on the green. Have you also ever wanted to know how to play those shots right on the edge of the green when you're in the thick rough and you haven't got a lot of green to work with, and you chop it out and it lands and stops really close to the flag? How do you play those wet, muddy lies? So easy to play off beautiful lies, isn't it? But what about the muddy ones? How do you make solid contact off those horrible lies? In this video, I want to show you the most natural way to learn to chip consistently from wherever you are on the green. There's only two things that you really need to learn. In this video, I can't wait to share with you. Before I do the look, if you're new to the channel, it's one of your first lessons of mine, please consider subscribing. I release videos just like this one every single week to try and help you improve your game. Plus, you never have to remember a thing. Everything we do here, I'll put into a free downloadable practice guide in the description box below. So I want to start teaching you to play shots like that time and time again. And before we get into the shots around the green, from the awful lies, how do you get backspin, all those kind of shots, let me show you two things that if you can learn these two things, they will unbelievably improve your chipping. I'm not going to give you a checklist of this, this, and this. Just two things will start to transform your chipping. So let's start with the very first thing we need to do. A lot of times when people get nervous over the short game shots, they get way too static. So the first thing I want you to do is, if you're throwing a ball, you wouldn't stand here like this and kind of just be static and throw, right? There'd be some softness to you and you wouldn't overthink it. You just, in a sense, have a flowing motion if I'm throwing a ball underarm onto this green, right? So there's a movement and a flow to that. And you need that in your chipping. So before we talk about what the wrists do and the arms do, which again is super, super simple, let's at least add some flow to your motion. So there's a couple of ways I want you to naturally feel this. You know, grab the club either in your dominant hand, right? And just start to move. And notice here, I'm almost even, look, I'm stepping forward and I'm swinging backward. I'm just tossing this onto the green here like this, you know, and then all I'm going to do is walk to the golf ball, put two hands on, or maybe a little step forward, just to add, whatever it takes, just to add some flow. And I would suggest in practice, to hit a few shots like this. Don't worry about where the ball goes. I'm going to stand to the side of the golf ball here, look, and I'm just going to flow towards the target. And the key here all the time is just get a sense of a little bit of natural motion. Get rid of some of that tension and staticness that destroys so many short game shots. I'm not asking you for a big powerful motion, just a little bit of freedom, just to free up that motion here. Stand slightly to the side of the golf ball here. I'm just stepping in and I'm just flowing through, just to keep that momentum going forward all of the time. So once you've unshackled yourself from the tension, and that can take a while, I would enjoy just getting on a practice green and just, or in your garden, just walking up to the golf ball, adding that freedom there, not worrying about strike. Just get rid of that tension. Once you've done that, then we do need to focus on strike. How do we make consistent contact? Well, there are two things we want to control. One is where the club bottoms out in your arc, but I would say the most important thing for short game is the depth of your arc. We want to control it. So what do I mean by the depth of your arc? Well, this here, look, if I'm swinging here, the arc height is too high and it would hit the top of the golf ball. If I was to lower myself to the ground now, the arc height would go underneath the ground and that would be a fat shot. So really simply, let's not, notice this, I'm not focusing on setup or anything like this. Let your body work this out. I'm going to get you to now make some swings, and I want you to focus simply on controlling your arc height. How do you do this? Do you know what? I'll tell you in a second, but initially, just see if you can. Notice how your club is interacting with the ground. Didn't interact there, now it's interacting. That's too much interaction. So notice, in a sense, by paying attention to how your club is interacting or not interacting with the ground is a way to, in a sense, control your arc height. So what I'm going to do now is this. I'm going to hit a shot. And the beautiful thing about controlling your arc height is you don't have to hit a perfect position on the ground. You can hit behind the ball slightly, you can hit slightly ahead of the golf ball, but when you control your arc height, watch this, I'm actually going to hit now, maybe an inch or two behind the ball. But because I'm not up here, I'm not going to go too low, I'm going to control my depth. Watch what happens. Hit way behind the golf ball there, and that's beautiful. Spins a little bit as well. I'm able to produce an action that is a little bit more consistent than one that requires absolute precision. Now, you might find after that simple golf tip, your chipping starts to naturally improve because you're controlling the arc depth. Some of my students, however, they want a little bit more. They want to know, well, how do I control the arc depth, Danny? Because I'm still a bit inconsistent. So let me give you a couple of common mistakes to look out for. Tina, a recent student of mine, was really struggling on short shots like this, even though we did this exercise. And the reason being is that she was excessively using her wrists. If you use too much wrists in the backswing for a short shot, well, you're just making the arc much shorter. If those wrists all come out too early, you end up fatting it. If they don't come out enough, you end up topping it. So what I did with Tina was I simply said, look, just control your wrists. Just get a sense here, pay attention to how the club's interacting with the ground, and you'll notice if you kind of keep the wrists a little bit kind of almost the thumbs pointing downwards as you're chipping here, you'll find you've got a little more control over that arc depth. She did that. The following day, she goes and wins the club championship. So it's really, really important. Super simple as well. The other couple of things to look out for, which are common mistakes I see with players who struggle with consistent contact, is when they make a swing, they'll often, in an attempt to strike it, they'll lower themselves towards the golf ball. When you do that, what are you doing? You're getting closer to the ground. You're more likely to fat it. When people do that as well, they fat it once or twice. They then kind of lift up with their arms to try and avoid the ground, and then they kind of thin it. Not very, very pleasant. Again, all this starts to disappear very naturally. If you pay attention to how, or the depth of the arc, you're naturally going to want to kind of control your height with your body as well. It doesn't make sense to do this, right? So these things can gradually disappear. So watch out for that. The other thing to watch out for, which is the final probably common fault, is this trail arm getting pulled behind you. If this has loads of flex like this and starts to pull behind, what you're going to do, you start to push that out, and that can get you going again underneath the ground. When you fatten a few, you then start pulling up, and it all starts to deteriorate. You can see here, look, if my arms are out extended in front of me, maybe my thumbs are pointing slightly downwards, and I'm simply paying attention to how that club is bruising the ground, I am now controlling that arc depth time and time again. So, that is it. That's contact. Let's talk about how the best players now play from muddy lies and how do they play, get backspin. Well, you'll see here, what I'm doing is if I want to get backspin on my chip shots, I've got a 60-degree Callaway Opus SB wedge, their new wedge, that has, first of all, spin pocket grooves, which help you to get spin. But I need those grooves to be clean. So I make sure when I'm chipping and I want spin, I want to make sure that this is unbelievably clean, right? No moisture on there at all. That gets rid of backspin immediately. Then I want to make sure I guarantee great contact. So what I'll tend to do if I really want to guarantee contact, I've obviously got arc depth, but I want to hit ball first. I'm going to move the ball slightly more centrally in my stance. I'm going to handle slightly further forward here. And then all I'm going to do is again concentrate on my arc height throughout this shot by paying attention to how the club interacts in the ground. And just naturally, you'll see this ball spin. One thing I'm often asked when I'm over the golf ball is what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about landing this ball just a few feet on the green here. I'm visualizing a fairly lower flight. I've set that low flight up with ball middle to back in my stance with a handle forward. From here, and then once I've got that, I've got my flight, I'm then going to do some practice swings again, paying attention to how my club is interacting with the ground, making sure I've got the arc height. And then I don't think of wrists and arms and all those kind of things. Allow your body to naturally do this. It'll work it out if you pay attention to those couple of things. And then from there, it's been very positive. Keep flowing. And watch this. That would have checked beautifully if it hadn't been for that golf ball there. But that is how you start to get backspin on your shot. There's no magic in it. It's simply decent amount of loft, decent strike. Now we'll work on some shots around the green, hard, horrible muddy lies, and the short-sided rough shot. So on these horrible, muddy, wet, bare lies, all I'm going to do here is get a bit closer to the golf ball here. So why I do that, so the heel's almost off the ground with the golf club, and why I've done that is I've taken all the wrist hinge out. Remember, wrist hinge could come out and then extend the club underneath the ground. If I take all that out, then ultimately, as long as I maintain my height, I'm just going to be, it's beautiful, right? This should be no different to any other shot, really. I'm just making it more likely. From here, I'm visualizing a very, very low shot. And let's have a look. You can see here there, that's still flighted low. See the spin, even on a shot like this, when you get the spin, so there's your backspin shot, off a horrible lie too. Let's just finish off with one, that popular question on my channel, which was, how do you play the short-sided one when the flag's right next to it? And you've got to come out that horrible thick stuff. So here you can see the ball's buried in the rough. I haven't got a lot of green to work with. I'm going to chip to this alignment stick here. How do we play this shot? You can't just, in a sense, do a normal chipping action because the rough is wet, it's heavy. So what we've got to learn here, and this is where the practice and the warm-up happens, what I would do before a round. This is my first attempt at this. What I'm going to do here is all we're doing is no difference to what we've done before. We're going to control the arc depth, but what I'm going to need now is a longer swing and more energy. So what I'll tend to do is have a longer golf swing here, so I've got a lot of energy stored, and then I can decide what to do with that energy. I can drop that energy just behind the golf ball, just there, and I'm just getting a sense of that. What I'm not doing is having a short swing and trying to jab it on the green, which is where most people are. So why this feels difficult for people is it's a fairly long swing for quite a short shot, but it's a feel thing. This is why we have to warm up. So provide enough energy in the backswing so that you can then allow it to fall into the back of the golf ball here. I'm moving that ball fairly forward in my stance here. I'm going to play it, so I'm going to almost land this club just slightly behind the golf ball, and it's just a pure feel thing. Behind the golf ball there, and look at that. I mean, I can't play any better than that. And all I've done is drop that club beautifully into the back of the golf ball. But for a short shot, it's required a fairly long swing to get through that rough, and that's what people struggle with. It's kind of a very misconception. So I hope you enjoyed this little short game video. Now remember, ShotScope data that I get from my watch tells me that if you improve your driving by 10%, you'll only drop maybe 0.02 shots. If you improve your short game by 10%, on average, you will drop 4 to 5 shots per round. That's pretty impressive. So understanding how to play shots around the green will really help you lower your scores. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend who you know is struggling with their short shots around the green. If you're looking at wanting to know how to play your pitch shots, click this one out right here. If you'd like more help personally from me, head over to dannymaude.com. But until next week, have a wonderful golfing week.